B9 is for biodiversity with Rachel and Handy.
The next step is to establish what types of impact the project is likely to cause and their consequence. B9 identifies two types of consequence that impacts may have: significant conversion and degradation. Significant conversion is defined according to our policy as habitat destruction in anticipation of or due to the project by direct and indirect impacts that change it completely. An example of significant conversion is the clearing of dry forest in the Chaco for cattle farming and soy production. Another example comes from India, where a transmission line was placed close to a breeding site for flamingos. Flamingos are not very agile in the air, and there have been many fatal collisions with this line. This is a significant conversion of the airspace that they require for moving between sites. It is important to note that conversion can be in anticipation of the project. An example is land titling. Once people know that there is a project coming, they may deforest new areas, hoping to increase the land that they can claim as theirs. Degradation is defined as habitat modification that makes it unsuited for the species to live there. An example would be if you are living in a town and all the supermarkets close. You would need to move or starve. It's the same for nature. Let's consider a road through a forested area. Although the road doesn't have such a big footprint, it is a barrier as it fragments the forest, isolating populations either side of the road. Perhaps it is hard for us to imagine it can have such an impact, but for many species it does. Opening up a road can also result in easier access to the area, leading to increased harvesting and hunting. This can reduce the population of big animals, so reducing seed dispersal and fundamentally alter the forest structure. In fact, there are many subtle effects of degradation that can be as damaging in the long run as land conversion. An example comes from the construction of an access road to a proposed hydropower plant in Guyana. Look at the Global Forest Watch website, which provides free information on the change in forest cover across the world and is updated annually. The pink spots indicate forest loss, and you can see how they increase every year. One of the biggest drivers is that the road has opened up the area to mining and logging. So, how do we predict the project impacts and their consequence? We have developed an extensive guidance document on how to interpret B9. It contains a lot of information covering all aspects of the policy and includes a table in the annex with the most common impacts from different development sectors. In terms of likely consequence, here are a few rules of thumb. Big projects tend to cause more impacts than small ones. Some sectors are worse than others. For example, new infrastructure, mines, oil and gas pipelines, large-scale agriculture, industry, energy generation including renewables, and transmission lines. Indirect impacts are often worse than direct impacts for biodiversity, as we have already discussed. Cumulative impacts can be very important, especially for migratory species. Think of a cascade of hydroelectric dams in a river. What is the impact of adding another hydro in this cascade? Will it be the tipping point for the survival of a migratory fish species? Something that I would like to stress is that added value projects can cause significant impact to biodiversity. Projects such as land titling, improved agriculture and forestry can end up causing more harm than good if they are not done sensitively. Don't forget that our policy allows us to use the precautionary approach. This is very useful for biodiversity-related issues when we don't have enough information, but feel that there is potential for non-compliance. So, imagine the worst-case scenario and use it. So where are we with the water extraction project in Ecuador? We know that this is a small project, but it could result in significant conversion or degradation depending on the amount of water extracted, as well as the location of the extraction in relation to the threatened frog population. This gives us a framework to identify additional studies we need in order to understand better the project's likely impact. But please remember, it is always good to ask biodiversity experts for their opinion, as there may be something that you have overlooked.